新型肺炎の影響により、今世界の人々が心に不安が広がっております。教園では亡くなられました人々の中心エコー、罹患された方々の闘病併誘、感染を止めるべく医療や衛生の最前線で努力する皆様の身体、守護、あらゆる人々の安穏と事態の沈静化を指針に記念し続けております。まずは今できることを取り組むことが一如です。私も真剣に祈っております。この自分たちもまた全世界で苦しみに遭う方々に寄り添い、苦難の沈静化へ善なる祈りを捧げていきましょう。私の心はいつも皆様と共にあります。ナムシンヨ。
Life is very long and full of winding paths. You don't have control over what's going to happen, and so I just keep trying to do the best thing that makes the most sense in the moment. Indy was born in 2015, and it was our first child. Late in the night, they took him away to do some tests before we would be able to go home, and they found out that he had a complex congenital heart disease. It was like very shocking and very overwhelming. And then he had his first open heart surgery when he was about 4 weeks old. I don't think he would have really known he was sick at all. He was just like a normal kid. And so then when he was 15 months old, we went back to LA to have a scheduled open heart surgery and repair. And then a few days out, they pulled out his chest tubes that were draining fluid around his heart, and it ripped a stitch on his heart, and the whole thing fell apart. They saved him, but he had had brain damage from not having oxygen to his brain. So we made the decision to take him off of life support. We don't have a lot of regrets about his life because he was really happy and he just had a really nice life, as short as it was. I was really intrigued by our experience in the healthcare system and learning about congenital heart disease. And I thought, oh man, I think I could have had an interest in medicine, which I had never thought that, I was an artist in the arts and never considered that before. So I talked to a lot of people and decided to go into a Master of Nursing program, an accelerated program. I thought it was a really good way to get into healthcare, working with other kids like Indy in a kind of short time. So right now I work in it's an adult and pediatric cardiovascular surgical ICU at Mayo. So it's with, they have adults and kids together, but everybody who's undergoing open heart surgery. Sometimes it's hard, but at the same time, I definitely can see that I have a different perspective on the patients and the families because I can put myself in their shoes so easily. So I have a child, her name is Makana. She's 27 months. We decided to name her Makana because when we were in Hawaii, we had a friend who gave Indy a shirt that had a picture of a gift on it and it said Makana underneath. And he wore that a lot. So now we have a beautiful child and that's really been healing for us.
I grew up in Wahiawa, Hawaii, in my Hanabata days, as you would say. And then I went to high school at Aya High School and went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa program. You know, I joined in 1986. I was a private, went to basic training. My father is a Vietnam veteran, and both his brothers also served, one in the Air Force, one in the Army, and all my great uncles from Maui all served either in the Pacific or in Europe during World War II. You know, our military family has become part of this ohana. I mean, really, if you look at this community and our legacy of service here in Hawaii, we have a long legacy. We talk about this place being a melting pot like the rest of the United States, but really a good friend of mine said it's actually like beef stew, because each part of Hawaii, just like a bento, has a special piece and place. And we come together and form this delicious combination. And I love to share that with my brothers and sisters in arms who come here, and they embrace it entirely. During Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, I ran the Joint Intelligence Center in Balad. You know, our first casualty from the 29th Infantry Brigade was Sergeant Jason Cariaga, and I think about him, not even 21 years old. I remember having a conversation with him before he took on the task of belonging to a human intelligence collection cell. And I said, "You're okay with doing this job?" And he said, "Absolutely," with a smile on his face, willing to do it even though he knew the risks. So unfortunately, you know, he is not here on Earth as a result of an IED. I often think about him during this Memorial Day, as so does all of his other band of brothers and sisters. It really is a time of reflection, a time to remember and to connect, to build gratitude for those who have sacrificed. Something that we can never give back, and we can never thank their parents and family members more. Freedom, equality, democracy, something, you know, a country that's based on ideals and not on ethnicity. It reminds me, and it's because of the people who've come before us and who've, again, sacrificed, that gives people like me an opportunity to be standing where I am. I just really appreciate your aloha and caring about our military and remembering those who have fallen.
You know, when I had a second child at age 19, I had already begun taking meth and heroin. I was addicted hardcore for about 6 years, and I was on the streets for about 4 of those years. And I was about 4 going on 5 months pregnant when one morning we were raided by HPD, and they arrested us. You know, 20 years later, I realized that they were saving my life. I went to jail and did 7 months in OCCC. Tough love is what I needed, and that's what I got. And it was long enough for me to get clarity in my head, in my heart, to kind of pivot. You know, these pause moments that we have, like we have right now in COVID, they're opportunities for us to reflect and pivot. My family is incredible. My mother is a workhorse. She went through major battles to adopt. She adopted my children, the 2 older ones. That's how we have them today. To know that my children are doing the best they can right now. And I think they practice acceptance in every day and working through their relationship with me. My daughter and I talk almost daily. I don't know how I was able to pull that off. I have 4 felonies. Working at HCF, I had a family. I learned to have friendships that were healthy, people who would lift me up. The most important piece of this is the community accepting me, is acceptance. When I worked at Hawaii Meth Project, I started sharing my story, I would first ask my family. And the agreement I had was that anything I shared in public, I would make sure that they knew. No surprises, it's our story. And they have accepted me. And I tell you, some of the things that come up have been really hard. That's a part of acceptance, is going through the hard stuff. And, and if we really want to be our best, true, authentic selves in this world and practice peace and aloha, we really need to go through that process of forgiveness in ourselves and others. I advocate for the people who feel that they have no voice. I advocate for those who are suffering in silence. I have people that reach out to me and they're asking me for help with their loved one who's suicidal, who is addicted, who maybe they're hurting. I'm not a counselor. What I am equipped to do is I am equipped to listen and guide them to the right place. And ultimately, I call myself a connector. I'm a connector. I always have felt that there's a purpose for me. Like, how did I go through this and come out the other side with one piece, I have found acceptance over and over again. And that is my kuleana, to pay it forward to others.
When a person dies, they die twice. They die when you put them in the ground. That's the first time. And the second time, they die when no one says their name. And I think 2001 affected all of us. Toby, he went to a recruit, he called us up and he said, Dad, I want to join. I think I'm going to the military. And Jim says, well, I hope you went to the Air Force or the Navy. And he said, no, I've already signed up with the Army. I want to go Special Forces. It blew me away in the sense, but also it's like, oh, well, if he goes through training, by the time he's done with training, this will all be over. And when he was deployed in 2006, then it was like, oh, this is getting serious. And the unit he was in went to areas in Iraq that were scary areas. When he came to visit us in 2006 for his R&R, and even though he and his dad in the front of the car as we were driving places, were their normal giggly selves, there was this undercurrent of seriousness that he's going to go back. He's going to go back. And when we say, well, goodbye, we knew it may very well be goodbye. We returned back to Iraq on the 7th of December, turned 28 on the 17th of January, and was killed on the 20th. On the 20th of January, when that knock came on the door, being who I am, I immediately knew there were four young men that were killed during that IED blast that killed Toby. And I thought about the other mothers, thinking, well, I know the military. I know what the resources are and who's there to back me up and support me in these days, weeks, months, years ahead. But those three mothers, they only may know their military through their sons. And how will they know where to get support? I remember reaching out to the casualty officer and saying, can you get me the addresses of the other family members of those boys? So since 2007, after Toby was killed and after we came back home to Hawaii, I made it my career, if you will, to work with others. doing what I think I do best, and that's finding within a community organizations and groups that provide support to families that have lost a military loved one. People say, well, you know, you're giving, you're working with families, but you know, how about you? But for me, I was always getting as much as I gave. Being able to talk to another mother, to talk to a widow or a father, I in turn received support.
Saraba tataya tabalokite on zambara zambarang. No maku saraba tataya tabalokite on zambara zambarang. No maku soro haya tataya tayata yata on soro soro hara soaka. No maku soro haya tata yata 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 on soro soro hara soaka.
No ende shihakko kinko shutara kachi chishi saisho kosha isse shomafu no.
今ここにハワイ灯籠流しエコホエにありて新型肺炎感染犠牲者はじめ園内各部の天区長合わせて一切万礼を少女の聖壇に印象し信用秘密最小の神宝言宗し立て祭るおのの霊を灯籠に託し聖地とハワイを結び視界変満冥福を記念すしからばすなわち信用軸の恵みをもつて諸少量は寛義浄土に往生すよって加減の霊にエコーすることさのごとし信用を魂に刻むことで勇気は生まれ知恵と慈悲にそれぞれの良き個性は輝く塾のご霊樹の幕さまで朝らなせんだまかろしゃなや
I really firmly believe that if we lead with aloha, we will come out of any situation better, stronger, healthier, happier, and we will be able to provide an environment and a place to live that's going to actually last for generations to come. Like many of my peers, I thought I was going to be going into kind of the banking route. And then quickly, we sort of saw this unraveling worldwide, but especially in an epicenter like New York City. A dear friend of mine who was in business school, he came across the article for Furlough Fridays. The arts were cut. Programs that really helped to enrich a child's whole being were being wiped out. It really kind of struck me to my core. And so being that I was in audio post-production for TV and film, I thought, well, what would happen if we took some of this technology and we applied it to music education? And I thought, well, what if we teach kids in Thailand a piece of music and we teach kids in Honolulu a piece of music, and we can connect them together? And who knows, maybe they can sing together, perform for each other. Because I felt like we were just missing that connection of people. You know, I think it's something that's been a part of my life ever since I was a child. It's something that I inherited from my parents and my parents' parents. They have always been in service. I think that's probably the best way to describe my engagement with community. It's always in service. We really do our best work when we're working with each other and when we're actually supporting one another. And so a group of friends had been originally gathering around the concept of voter registration and civic engagement. Well, then COVID happened, and our group had to pivot from focusing specifically on planning different get out the vote, rock the vote types of events to taking a real cold, hard look at, are we prepared as a people? Once we realized that the coronavirus was going to have this really incredible global impact, we decided to make it possible for people who otherwise wouldn't even have some sort of covering or mask or cloth to make it free to the public. And so we thought, well, let's just step up and let's fill the gap by providing these 2 million masks for free. People just pitched in to help us figure out, okay, where can you get these masks? How can you get them? And in the last maybe month or so, we've been able to create our own statewide distribution networks with friends and community partners and people who just care to get these masks out to the state. Hands down, this whole entire volunteer initiative was riding on the wings of Aloha. I think Aloha is, of course, how do we lead with love, and not necessarily just romantic love, but kind of like this sense of love and compassion for each other as human beings first. Aloha comes in many shapes, forms, seen and unseen. In this pandemic, I see more people walking on the streets. I see more people, literally, because most times you have a mask on, looking each other in the eye, acknowledging each other. I see people having much more courtesy. I see people who may not have even considered supporting a small farmer CSA. Now they are picking up every week from different local farmers. And I love the fact that we are really paying closer attention to how every action we make has an impact on ourselves as well as others. And I'm encouraged by that. Through these moments, I think what we're finding is this return back to clarity around what's really important. think it's timely that lantern floating is coming up, because now more than ever, we need to be reminded of our connection to each other, our connection to our ancestors, our connection to memory, what it means to mourn, what it means to uplift. How powerful is that? And how necessary is something like that in these times? The whole organization have always embodied aloha and have always embodied what I believe is really what's going to carry us through any situation. I'm just so grateful to watch you folks impact so many lives and so many people here as well as abroad. And then we all come to the ocean, which we are able to share in its gifts, and we connect through this water. We put that energy into the water, and it's able to kind of wrap us all in it. And I cannot think of something more needed than that kind of connectivity for our people and our state and our home, but for everybody worldwide.
Hundreds of years ago, when we as a community would come together and collaborate, that was hana. And when new folks came to our island, they saw what we were doing and they said, oh, that looks like work. But hana and work are not the same things. Hana is more of a much deeper connection to those around you, and it calls you to act in a certain way, and that you give in ways that are kind and compassionate. But it asks that you give much deeper from your soul, I guess. When we first started hearing about what was going on with COVID, I think it was at the end of December. And in January, I started seeing that it was getting really bad in China. And already in my mind, I started thinking, this is not going to be good for us. Yeah, and I think there were a lot of nights initially that I had a hard time sleeping, that I noticed there was a lot of fear for me. I was really anxious and fearful. And I feel like I went through all the stages of grief, you know, like anger, sadness, resentment, all of those things for a few weeks, and really did not want to think about putting myself in there to treat patients that might be ill with COVID. And then I just sat one day and I meditated and thought, there's no point in me running away from this. Let's just sit and see what's here. And something weird shifted as I did that. And I just started to list everything that I was grateful for. All the people, all the friends, all the experiences. And I just thought, I've lived such a rich and meaningful life already, that to turn my back at a time when people really need me, that is not my hana. That's not my kuleana. And actually, it shifted me to, rather than running away, to run towards the patients that might be sick. And to give them as much as I could in terms of kindness and compassion. But for me, it was really a matter of, I don't want patients that are sick with this illness to feel like they're outcast, or that they don't matter, or that they're not valued. And part of what I think I can bring to this situation is the ability to be present with what's there, to really go there with them. Yeah, one of the first things I did was to go to my family and say that I felt like I was being asked to do this. In telling them what I was doing, it was also saying goodbye. It was also saying thank you. It was also saying I love you. Yeah, there were many times that I thought I might not see my parents again. I might not see my siblings again. And so it was this realization that it could get real very soon. And still there was this, like almost like a peace and just this calm that whatever happens, you know, I've been surrounded by love this whole time. And so, yeah, I think it just kept me going. Really realized that my hana is not necessarily to fix medical issues or fix situations, but it's trying to find ways to bring healing. You know, I hope I helped them to feel that I'm just another human, not necessarily a doctor, but a human and a friend that's going to spend time with you and care for you, and that's going to walk alongside you in this journey, wherever it takes us.
There are no graves here. When you look out into the fields where you have laid your loved ones to rest, look merrily upon them, and you shall see yourself and your children dancing. I was the chief of Brooklyn South for 11 and a half years, and within 7 years, I had 7 cops die in the line of duty. I retired from the NYPD 2 years ago. I did 38 years of service. It was a dream. I feel so blessed that I was able to find the path that I found, or the path that found me. It was filled with inspiration, significance, happiness, joy, accomplishments, service, but it was laced with some of the deepest pain that I could have experienced in my life. And I went last May, and it was one of the most beautiful events of my life. I probably had a pretty good idea what to expect. You know, I read up on it, I looked at a few videos. I knew what it was about, but I had no idea of the emotional impact it would have on me. I purposely didn't put a lot of planning into what I was going to write. I thought some things are best not planned and are best to do when you're in the moment. You know, one message was about my nephew Michael, who died in the line of duty. He was a firefighter, and who died on September 11th. And you know, I just wrote something about his impact, will forever impact on me, and the gift that he's given through the pain of his loss. And a number of people sent me messages of people they'd like me to remember. So I write that, and that just, like, writing those things, it just grounded me emotionally even more. And then came time to go out. It was strange because I almost didn't want to let go of it, because I felt so attached to what was a lantern that was paper and plastic to make it float. It became something very profound and very emotional for me. And I sat down, and it was almost like I didn't want to let it go, and I pushed it, and there it went. I stood there for a while just reflecting and looking at the lanterns and thinking of what I had written. And then looking at all of the collective sadness, just looking at people and seeing people cry and hold each other, thinking that, you know, all of the things they wrote on those lanterns that became manifestations of deep emotion. You know, besides food and nurturing and shelter when we're born, we need connection. And if we're going to connect, why not make it loving? Why not make it kind? Why not make it meaningful? let's make it as special as we can, because that's why we're here.
So much of the influence on my life comes from my family and familial relationships. If you think about my parents, if people know my parents, and they would understand the kind of influence that they had on me. My father had so many relationships with very diverse groups of people: spiritual leaders, political leaders, business leaders, community leaders, janitors, teachers, police officers. It didn't matter. He was a friend to all. And because of that, I think that I developed a appreciation to observe people, and to recognize just the significance of people. The first Lantern Floating celebration I ever attended was 2014. And it was because of a group of folks that we were asked to mentor from the National Guard. There was something spectacular about having 50,000 people on the beach being so very kind and generous, gracious, patient, compassionate with each other. We're all there in a very somber moment to honor, to remember, and to be grateful for someone's life, right? And or maybe to find some resolution on a relationship that is now fractured. I mean, that's severed as far as distance. It was after that lantern floating that we debriefed. So when we debriefed, what we got is we got so much of that, the beauty of it, the generosity. You know, I wasn't facilitating that conversation, so I was just being present. And at the end of the meeting, I said, you know, I'm going to share something. It's phenomenal to have 50,000 people on the beach who are so cohesive in their generosity and graciousness, patience. It's phenomenal. And you know what happened the minute they got off that beach and they got in their cars? Get out of here. It's like, what happened? What happened? And what I believe is that we think that the mission is completed now, and now we can go off and do our lives. And what I see is that for those couple of hours, for some reason, we were able to pause people. That people could pause. And in that moment of pause, we could just be with each other. So the question is, how do we pause people? And I believe that how we pause people is through our own disciplines and how we live our life with a disciplined life, and we're willing to share that discipline with others. It does give an opportunity for people to pause. And so if we think on how did 50,000 people on the beach pause together, it's because a husband and wife many, many years ago were so disciplined to honor someone's life. I don't know if it was an individual or a group of people, but they became so disciplined in how they would honor someone's life and the significance that it spread because they were sharing this discipline with other people. Now it's throughout the world, and every year 50,000 people come in tune with that discipline. My concerns, my fears, my hopes, they're all tied up together. Is that we've lost so many lives in a very short period of time. And it's just not only the lives, it's the trauma. You know, that the entire economy is shut down. But we were willing to shut it down throughout the whole world to hopefully save lives. So there was this congruency for the majority of people, I think, that they were willing to make a sacrifice, they're willing to share to save a life. At some point, that's going to change. We have to get back to being able to be employed, to pay our bills, to go to work, to have our schools open again. Kids will be back on the soccer fields, and parents will be rushing from Kapiolani Park out to Kapolei, up to Mililani, maybe in the same weekend. My hope is, can we just pause a little bit longer? Can we just hold on and just savor this moment that we had everybody in the same place? Not physically, so that we remember that we're the whole thing. We're not the people who are just sprinting. What I maybe in just my hopes is that people will remember that they're not just the people who are racing. They're also the people who are making phone calls to people they hadn't made calls for a long time. They were thinking about other people because they had time to think about other people. Can we, because we choose to, remember so that we can have a relational society, so we can savor the moments of people, being with people?
The best parts of me know that I need other people around me to support me and love me. And I in turn do that for those I come in contact with.
I've always been a person, I feel like, that tries to make things better. And that has been the same in the piano world or now in the nursing world.
I really look to stand up to anything or anyone that is harming others. And the best of me is to be a protector and a guardian.
I care deeply about people, and when I embrace someone, a friend, a neighbor, I do it wholly. And I think that's what people know about me or remember about me.
The best of me is giving. We're here to make other people's lives easier. We're here to love, we're here to give, and kindness is part of that.
希望とは過酷な運命を乗り越える力です。誰もがこの力を持っています。どなたもが持っています。人間にとって一番辛いことは先が見えないことだと思います。どこまで行ったら打開できるのか、展望が見えない時もあるでしょう。でも必ずブレイクスルー、その次のことがあります。それを信じてほしいのです。見えないウイルスと取り組みの中で、私たちの見えない絆が見えたこともあ あると思うのです。その意味で貴重な体験だったと言えます。真如灯籠流しはShare your light、灯火を明かりを分け合い、より輝かせることをテーマにしています。身近な人に喜んでもらえることを日々少しずつでも実践すること、行っていくこと、そこからあなたにしかできないことを見つけることができます。こうした時こそ、だからこそ人とのつながりを大切にしていってください。そのつながり、喜びを与え合う、分かち合うこと、私たちの希望となるのです。どなたもが唱えることができる成就さをお唱えいたします。成就さナムシンニョ、ナムシンニョ、ナムシンニョ、ナムシンニョ、ナムシンニョ。もし皆様が不安や恐怖に襲われる、そうしたことがありましたならば、この南無真如の成就さをぜひ覚えて、とても短いですからお唱えしていってください。南無真如と唱えると、自らの良心、良き心、長所を自覚することができます。人生を意義あるものにする、それぞれの良き可能性が輝き出します。希望から希望へと困難を乗り越える勇気が生まれてきます。私には皆様の心に灯る個性の明かりがはっきり見えています。美しいです。だからお約束しましょう。善なる実践の光をキープしていくことを、希望を失わず、真如というそれぞれの心の明かりを信じ、誇りを持てばパンデミックでさえこれがあってよかったと言える未来を作り出せます。